Good afternoon to you once more. Now, it may have been in a very recent video in this series, or it may have been in a video that I began and abandoned halfway through because I heard myself sounding particularly foolish, or because in the middle of making it I fell off my chair, or I made an insulting remark about a fellow scholar, which I later realized was completely inaccurate, and that I was the one who had made the mistake and therefore eliminated the video retrospectively to spare my own blushes. But wherever it was, I did wind up talking about the rather singular presumption on my part that inside drama, that thing in which one voice joins with another voice, who join with a chorus in its original incarnation, to diversify the number of views about the topic of the day. But within this tradition, which is essentially the drama, drama has plenty of wonderful monologues to its credit. Nevertheless, you don't usually go to the theatre expecting one voice only. That within this diversity of voices that is theatre, there is an obstinate recurrence, an obstinate survival of the social process which has, as it were, licensed drama to be, which is, in a sense, the monologue. Perhaps it's the lyric chorus, so-called, where the village gets together to sing their gratitude to the gods for another good harvest. The thing that precedes the multiplicity of voices, the one voice, the story told, Homer's storytelling voice. I'm saying this thing that gave rise to, I was jokingly saying licensed, in the sense that is what it did do and still does do, the telling in many voices of a story, relinquishes its place to the original, to the thing that licensed it, to the voice that said, "Sing, goddess," the anger of Achilles. And no voice popped up and said, "Well, just wait a minute now. Are you sure that's what you want to tell us about? I mean, Achilles, very important bloke, but wouldn't we rather hear? Couldn't you perhaps sing the song of Paris and his experience of stealing Helen away from Menelaus' court?" No voice, no such voice occurs unless in the mind of the hero, who thinks, "Oh, not bloody old Achilles again," if indeed he or she has heard too many stories about the great Achilles. There is the one voice, the voice of the goddess. And my assertion was that the voice of the goddess returns from within the diversity of voices in a play and hushes them for a moment and says, "Shut up now and listen to me. And I shall tell you a story which may not obviously be connected to the story that you are witnessing. But nonetheless, you will increasingly realize that it is not a tangent. It's the digression that later in the history of literature provides the essence of a genre, that's to say the novel, where digression, at least according to Lawrence Sterne, our, I say, novelist's great forebear, is the essence of the form. So in making this assertion that storytelling, silencing others on stage to listen to one story, occurs in the history of drama right up to the present day in singular and instructive forms. This assertion led me to refer to discoveries of my own, that this was still a ruling element in drama, discoveries made in the theatre, watching other people's plays, but also in my own playwriting experience, particularly when I wrote, as I did for some years, with a wonderful writing partner, a marvelous writer himself. And we would come to a point where I would say, maybe he sometimes did, I suspect it was mainly me, saying, we need a story here, yes? And he would say, absolutely, dog needs a walk. I'll be somewhere out there in the park or around the bay. walking the dog, and he'd like to have an opportunity to walk the dog, and this was a perfect opportunity. I was left to write the story, which, to my absolute amazement with regard to my own talents, such as I had understood them to be very limited, I suddenly found myself in the grip of the storyteller's guise and became the one who thought up extraordinary, elaborate, digressive tales, one for each piece, not a series of them within the same work, but one that, hard to describe, not so much encapsulates the play or the film or whatever it was we were writing, but draws us into a world that will forever cast a kind of moonlight on the whole piece, without which it's somehow impossible to fully imagine or understand it. So in doing so, I made reference to my own working practices, and I apologized as well as I might that I was not drawing primarily attention to the works of the great writers with whom this series of videos is primarily concerned, but seemingly unable to escape the orbit of my own narcissism and desire to mention my own work. But I have to say that it's not really so much a desire to mention my own work, because this is not a place in which I can usefully advertise, except to advertise my own vanity. Rather, it's inescapable for me because in searching for what is immanent in theatre, and making the claim that there is such a thing in the novel, regard to the novel, I would never make any claim for anything immanent in it. It's anything you claim it to be, whereas theatre is not quite anything that you claim it to be. We're sometimes inclined to say rules, but I don't think it's rules so much as it has a soul. It has a central demand, request, let's put it that way, to the goddess to sing for us. And I believe that in this video, if it survived my own disgust at some of my attempts at making these videos, if it survived that and is still somewhere on YouTube, I inspected the whole question of why it should be the anger of Achilles that we should be asked in the very first line, officially the very first line of Western literature, to attend to, and why that anger is absolutely central to all of literature. Why wounds which provoke anger, which are a distraction from fear, are the subject of all storytelling. And therefore it's not, I'm going to tell you, Goddess, would you mind telling us about this very annoying man and his rage? It's not quite that. So the reason that I, in that case, and in other cases, and singularly today with, I should say with your permission, but I'm not really giving you a chance to reject permission, although, no, it is with your permission. You can turn off at any time. I want to return to the question of my own working experience, because in writing, in commenting on plays, great plays that we're commenting on in the course of this series, and in referring, as I have been, and if I haven't yet, I will shortly do, to great acts of directing, great moments in the history of theatrical direction, such as is mentioned by the wonderful actress Fiona Shaw, describing her experience of a production of Chekhov's The Seagull by Peter Stein, I think one of the great directors in theatrical history. These are very meaningful moments, very expressive of what it is I'm looking for. This immanent element, these these traces, this spoor of theatrical narrative and what it most deeply is. In hunting for this spoor, I can't get at certain aspects of the process without referring to the process itself. That's to say, not the finished thing, the wonderful, the great play, and not the splendid piece of imagination that a director's contribution to performance is, but rather right back to the primitive act of making a play. What is it? What is it like groping in that darkness? That is the first and foremost hunting of the Snark, search for the essence of drama that I have offered as one of the purposes of this series of videos, looking at not only the history but the meaning, because I am asserting that there is a meaning, and by that what I intend is to say that there is an ever-recurring presence that is the goddess in theatre, and to reach out for her hand and to discover more about her is what I intend in this little series. So in order most efficaciously to do that, I need to take you to the author sitting at his desk, a little as I so often imagine Shakespeare at his desk, which I see is rather rough-hewn in a rather small apartment in the East End of London, lit by a candle, of which he finds himself saying in Macbeth, "Out, out, brief candle." And then he nevertheless is continuing. He isn't quite blowing the candle out yet. He still has ink in his inkwell and a quill with which to continue Macbeth's meditation on the utter emptiness, meaninglessness of life as it seems to him, to Macbeth, at that point. So the candle that brings him his next thought and his next line is the one that I want to drag onto our little stage today and continue it in the next, maybe in a couple of videos, so as not to go on at length any one time. And I want to take you to the making of two plays of mine where I can describe, as I say, not advertise their virtue, but describe the distinctive strangeness of the search for what kind of thing they might be. This is in no way an assertion of their quality, but the hunt, the search is really the thing that concerns me. And I was prompted, these are two plays connected for me with the letter M. One is called Magus, and the other one is called Midget in a Catsuit, reciting Spinoza. So to start with the first of these two plays, which were put on one after another, staged only a few years ago, one after another. Magus came about for two reasons, rather simple to have a reason at all, because I work not from my own life, not from things that have happened to me that I want to relate, nor that have happened to anybody I know that I want to relate, nor do I ever want to relate something of seeming importance in the public sphere. I want to relate what the act of relating wants me to relate. That's to say, what does the play want to say today? What does the play want to say at all? Where shall we start? Sing, Goddess. And so, taking the first one, as you can see, you may be able to see from the clock, I'm about to stop. I'm racing against time. In Magus, there were two proximate causes, very different, but both strangely compelling. And I will, now that the 15-minute hour has struck, I will stop and continue immediately to explain myself.